Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Bambi CEO Nirav Chetta, and I'm here with NEMT expert Ray Hagan. Ray is the owner of JARPEC, which is an organization that consults new businesses, particularly NEMT businesses, on getting from 0 to 1. And he is the vice president at WellTrans, which is the largest NEMT broker in the state of Indiana. Ray, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Super excited to be on today and kind of talk through, kind of that initial getting started, that jumping off point for people who are looking to get into the NEMT space.
Awesome. So Ray, what we're going to do today, as we've discussed, is a lightning round. We have about 15 topics that NEMT companies need to think about. We're going to spend just 1 to 2 minutes, at high speed on each topic and jump from topic to topic. And then, of course, we can dive into these topics in future talks. So let's get started. Number 1, deciding to open an NEMT business. So, the business isn't just about driving, it's about ensuring safe, reliable, and compliant transport for those in need. Talk to us about the commitment involved and deciding to open an NEMT business.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that individuals need to think about when deciding whether or not to open an NEMT business, the reason behind it, right? Because when you're owning and running an NEMT business, you're dealing with people, all different kinds, backgrounds, ethnicities, social determinants, health determinants, all those things. So going into it with the understanding that you're going to be dealing with people every single day is probably the first thing that I always talk to people about when they ask whether or not starting an NEMT business is the right fit for them.
Okay, thank you. Topic number 2, market research. So there are 2 aspects of this. One is the demand. What's the demand for NEMT services in your area? The elderly population, the disabled individuals, and those without transport. And number 2 is the competition, right? You have to identify what other NEMT providers are in their area and how you would compete against them. So talk to us.
Yeah, so with market research, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? Every state is a little different. Every geography is a little different. The first thing that I always try to point out is understanding how an individual's geographic area works, right? From a competition standpoint, from a need standpoint. So in Indiana, there are multiple brokers who operate in the same geography, right? So if a individual is coming and wanting to open up an NEMT business here in Indiana, the first thing that we look at is what is the need, right? What is the need in their particular area? And you can find that out, first of all, just by contacting brokers if your geography has a brokered NEMT service, right? It's the first place to start. It's very easy to reach out to them, ask what the need in that general area is, and get an understanding of what a typical day's volume would look like. The second thing that I would look into is what are the local facilities and local nursing homes, dialysis centers, hospitals, all those different facilities that need and require NEMT transportation for their members. Some of those states and geographies allow for private independent contracting. So getting an understanding from those facilities what that need, what that demand is. Is it already being filled? Or are they struggling to find a quality, reliable provider to come in and transport their patients to and from appointments? And then the third thing is just putting out feelers and looking at the, essentially the competition. Who's out there right now in their general area? It may be a scenario where, in a heavily populated metropolitan area, you're going to be up against quite a few competitors. However, traveling a few minutes in a different direction may put you in a slightly more rural area where there aren't providers willing to service that area. So understanding the why, is there not enough run volume or trip volume? Is there not enough daily volume coming out of that area to support a driver? Or is it a scenario where they're just further spaced out, trips take longer, and developing a strategy that would incorporate those types of trips to make sure that it's a profitable market for you to put your vehicles and your drivers in on a regular basis?
Got it. Let's move to the next topic. Number 3, state regulation and requirements. So every state has its requirements for NEMT businesses. What do people do about that?
Yeah, so that is the number one thing that catches people up in the process, is understanding what each state or each region's regulatory requirements are. Traditionally, you're going to have to get some version of insurance. Amounts vary by state and location, but also if they're partnering with brokers. Sometimes a broker will have a higher limit requirement than what a particular geography, region, or state may require. So understanding what those are before going in and just purchasing things. Reach out to your state Medicaid office, get with them, understand what all is required to go through, get certified, be approved in order to take Medicaid transportation, Medicare, or any other type of transportation required by the state. Some states require you to go through the Department of Health to get your vehicle certified and licensed, similar to like a taxi cab company that has to go through and do inspections. Most of your brokers will also require vehicle inspections for the vehicles within your fleet that are going to be participating. And then states themselves will often require an initial inspection of a vehicle. So understanding that both from the regulatory certification standpoint to get approved by the state, a vehicle standpoint, but also the requirements that you have to have for your drivers. Most states require that drivers have some form of CPR first aid, cultural competency, different certifications and trainings that are required in order to transport members. You'll also have to do your Office of Inspector General and your federal database searches to make sure that none of your drivers have ever been excluded from any type of federal funding program. So doing those searches and understanding what those are beforehand will save you a lot of time, money, and resources on the front end before you get to a point where you're starting to make your first hires and bring on more staff.
Sounds good. Topic number 4, aligning expectations of cost. So NEMT businesses have various costs, right? Vehicle, insurance, employees, software, compliance. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so from a cost standpoint, there's a significant amount that goes into it. One, you have the cost of just starting your business. Some states, it's relatively cheap to register your business and walk through the process of getting certified through the state. Other states, not so much. So understanding what that's going to look like ahead of time. Vehicle cost, right? Vehicles are constantly on the rise. So understanding the pros and cons of buying new, purchasing used, and leasing vehicles. Most of the time in situations where you're putting on high miles, the leasing options come with pros and cons. So understanding the different leasing programs. With used vehicles, you're getting a used vehicle. So making sure that a mechanic has gone through and inspected the vehicle for deficiencies and issues. So you don't get out, get a member in the vehicle, and then the vehicle breaks down. And then with new vehicles, just understanding the depreciation value of that vehicle the second that you drive it off the lot. From an insurance standpoint, insurance is probably the second highest expense that a company will have outside of labor cost. So understanding your state or region's insurance requirements, speaking with an insurance broker ahead of time, understanding what a general cost for that level of insurance would be. In Indiana, the state requires $1.5 million in general and auto liability. On average, for a new venture, that runs between $15,000 to $17,000 a year per vehicle. So understanding what your local geography requires and reaching out to those individuals who can help give you an understanding of cost ahead of time. Then you're looking at compliance, right? You've got to do your driver's training. You've got to stay on top of your state business license certifications. There's always some cost associated with that. And then my favorite one is software, right? Understanding the cost associated with software.
That's my favorite one too.
People who are just getting into NEMT don't always understand how much work and time goes into planning a route, right? If you're a route-based organization that has dedicated pickup and drop-off times, understanding that and building an efficient route that saves you time and money is going to be key. So getting software in place that helps you with that saves you significant amount of time as an owner, but also as an operator. A lot of companies will start off where the owner is also a driver. So they're going out and they're putting 8, 10, 12 hours in a vehicle, coming back and then attempting to plan routes. Find a way to make it as streamlined and efficient as possible, and software is definitely an advantage to helping you do that.
Next topic, creating a business structure. So a company has to decide whether they're going to be a sole proprietorship, LLC, corporation, partnership. How do they think about that?
So the number one thing that I recommend here is speaking to a business attorney to, one, get a full understanding of where they want to go, right? It's not hard to set up an LLC or a sole proprietor, but the thing to keep in mind is the liability on you as an individual, but also understanding where you want to go as an organization. Are you going to be an organization that has 2 or 3 or 4 vehicles, or are you going to be an organization that has 30, 40, 50 vehicles? There's a lot of liability and a lot of risk that goes into having additional vehicles and a large organization. Speaking to those business attorneys can help give clear direction on not only where you're starting, but where you're wanting to go. So halfway down the path, you don't have to make a transition from an LLC into an incorporated type model, saving you time, money, and energy.
Got it. Topic number 6, obtaining insurance. So you've already touched on this a bit in topic number 4, but you've got vehicle insurance, liability insurance, workers' compensation. Anything you want to expand on?
Yeah, so again, insurance is the second highest cost, but understand that insurance it's a necessity, because that is the buffer between you and your business going out, right? NEMT, by trade, you're in a vehicle transporting people. People are expensive. If you get into an accident and that passenger is hurt, maimed, or if a tragic accident occurs and somebody is deceased, lawsuits will incur, and the number of NEMT related lawsuits have risen significantly over the last several years. The same with the trucking industry. Anytime that somebody has the opportunity to get out there and attempt to make an easy buck off of a lawsuit, you should expect that they're going to. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence. You have the proper insurance in place, not only for you, but also for your employees. That the workers' comp thing for organizations that have W-2 employees is huge, because if that worker goes out, you don't have the workers' comp insurance, that's going to come back to you if you don't get strung up in state regulation and requirements on that as well. So making sure that you understand exactly what your state requires from an insurance level, and that you have not only the minimum amounts, but sufficient amounts to cover you and your business in the event of an accident.
Got it. Topic number 7, authority requirements. You've got US DOT, MC numbers. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so understanding your business is going to be key here. Are you an organization that's going to strictly stay within the confines of your state? Or are you going to be an organization that crosses over state lines? Because if you're an in-state only and you've never crossed state lines, typically you can go through and just get your intrastate operating authority. Every state has slightly different requirements on whether or not they require you to have a US DOT number, or if you can go just directly to the state and file for your operating authority. States like Indiana require you to still have your US DOT number before applying for your in-state operating authority. And then for organizations that are operating in between state lines, having your interstate operating authority through the Department of Transportation, getting your FMCSA numbers situated, going through that process, but also making sure that you're staying on top of the annual and biannual recertification documents. That's something that continuously trips providers up, is just not staying on top of those yearly and biannual and semi-annual requirements based on each individual state. Set a reminder in your calendar, because that's the number one thing that'll trip people up, and getting pulled over for not having your operating authority active can and will result in significant fines.
Okay. Topic number 8, registering with your Medicaid broker or your Medicaid office. Tell us about it.
Yeah, again, so going back to, topic number 2, when you're reaching out to your state, is understanding, are you in a broker model, or are you in a state or regionally sponsored model? If you're in a broker model, talk to other organizations, talk to other companies, see which brokers are easy to work with. Starting with those, going through the process typically involves contracting, submitting all required credentialing and regulatory items, vehicle inspections, training, depending on the state, going through and getting all that stuff taken care of sooner rather than later, and asking questions along the way is huge. Also understanding that each broker has different requirements. So as you're going through your contracting and credentialing portion of your brokerage interactions, make sure to read those contracts. Make sure that you thoroughly understand those requirements. Is it a scenario of you have a 10-minute wait time for member no-shows, or is it 15-minute, or are you unable to classify individuals as no-shows? Are there penalties associated with on-time performance and failure to meet that? Is there requirements for the number of trips that you're supposed to take if you give a minimum quota? Understanding those requirements during saves a lot of time and frustration once you're contracted and once you're actually going. Also understanding if there are differences between your broker requirements and your state requirements. So making sure that you are in a position to identify which trips meet which requirements so that you can accommodate those and keep yourself in the green.
All right. Topic number 9, regulatory and compliance requirements. So you've got vehicle standards, driver qualifications, reporting requirements. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so again, every state's different in what these requirements are. In Indiana, most of the brokers require that billing and trip submission details are submitted no later than 90 days after the trip has occurred. Failure to do that may result in non-payment of trips or penalties. So understanding those regulatory issues. Also understanding that insurance expires. Your state certifications require trainings expire. So staying on top of those, not just, hey, this training expires today, I need to get it fixed, but being proactive. You know, knowing that in 30 days, this driver needs to go back through these training requirements that the state or the broker put in place. So being proactive about getting that training done ahead of time to keep yourself out of a situation where you have to pull 2 or 3 or 4 drivers out on the same day, or risk them being shut off or placed inactive and no longer being able to be out there performing trips, keeping the wheels moving and the business growing.
Got it. Topic number 10, hiring drivers and staff. You got to make sure they have the required certifications, pass background checks, they're trained in patient sensitivity. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so from a hiring staff, this is always a difficult situation. Everybody wants to hire the best possible person that they can, but understanding who that person is for your organization is going to be key. You know, finding people who are compassionate, finding people who are reliable, who are dedicated to the mission of your organization, right? Because you're transporting people, so you want to find individuals who want to serve that population, that want to make sure that they're doing what's needed by the organization to keep the organization growing and in compliance with what their contracted requirements are. But also understanding that in almost every state, national background checks, state background checks, sex offender checks, OIG, and SAM checks are all required. So getting those done ahead of time, asking those questions up front during the interview of, hey, we're going to have to do a background check and a drug screen. We're going to have to check your OIG and your SAM. We're going to go through and be checking these things. Are there any concerns? Understanding that up front may save you time going through the process and then finding out that this individual has, you know, a felony that happened last year, and now you've spent the time and the money on those checks, and you've spent your time. And again, your time is extremely valuable, especially as an owner. But understanding that up front saves time, and then going through and getting the proper training. Right? The more time that you spend training your drivers efficiently and effectively saves you time on the back end from complaints and issues, possible accidents and incidents. So doing as much as you can on the front end, and then staying up on top of that training and those requirements, and making sure that you're staying in touch with your driver population for retention. It's becoming increasingly more difficult to find quality drivers, let alone keep them once they're employed. So keep them engaged, keep them active, and really keep your ears to the ground on what's going on throughout your organization.
Got it. So topic number 11, I guess you've already covered a bit, which is training your staff. Anything more you want to expand on in terms of safety protocols, customer service, regulatory compliance in terms of training your staff?
Yeah. So every state, every broker typically has some version of a required training minimums that have to be met. Never be afraid to go above and beyond that. Organizations like CTAA and NEMTEC put out great training that's free or low cost that you can provide to your drivers to really increase their awareness and understanding of what it is that you're doing as an organization and where you want to head. So don't be scared of training them to a higher level than what's expected.
All right. We're on to topic 12, which is my favorite one, dispatching software. NEMT businesses have to invest in reliable dispatch software that streamlines the process of assigning trips to driver and vehicle schedules, planning their routes and schedules for the day, tracking in real time. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so from a software standpoint, I cannot express how important it is. In Indiana, like I said, there are multiple brokers that cover the same geography and transportation providers that will work with multiple brokers. So when you're getting fed trips from multiple locations, having software that can help you navigate through the best possible situations that make your organization successful is key. But also being able to effectively and efficiently see what's going on in your organization. Are there drivers that are getting too many trips that they can't be efficient and now they're running late? Or are there drivers that just aren't getting used very much? In organizations that have done a lot of manual planning, I've always found that as soon as they switch over to software, their load volume between drivers significantly levels out, which increases the driver satisfaction, increases engagement, increases efficiencies, saves the company money, but also allows for them to see gaps and holes in their schedules, right? Every NEMT organization wants to fill those holes, fill those gaps as much as possible, because that's how they stay efficient and keep making money, keep transporting people, and keep the wheels moving. And being able to see those holes throughout your entire organization is a resource that is by far the greatest thing since NEMT became an available service.
Can't disagree with you there. We could do a whole topic on that one, and we probably will. But for now, let's move on to topic number 13, which is accounting and personnel software. So you got to maintain clear financial records. You got to have accounting staff that use specialized software to manage your finances, invoicing, and payroll.
Yep. And that's exactly it. When it comes to NEMT, transporting people to and from the locations is the primary purpose behind it. But getting paid is what keeps the business going. So understanding your state or broker's billing requirements is going to be huge. Are there time limits between when you can submit your invoices or your completion details for payment? Also, what's the turnaround time on those payments after you submit them? Is it a 7-day, 14-day, 21-day, 30-day turnaround time? Because understanding that, you're going to need to understand your cash flow and understanding how much money you're going to need to have in the bank to pay for fuel, pay for vehicle maintenance, pay staffing costs, pay insurance, any other costs associated with the business, understanding that. So having accounting personnel and billing personnel so that you can quickly and efficiently send out your completion details and your invoices to get that turnaround on payment is going to be huge. But also making sure that you're staying compliant with local and state and federal tax laws.
All right. So you've already touched on topic 14 a bit, which is billing and submitting claims, right? Anything more you want to add to that?
The big thing for that is just making sure that you are being transparent. I've seen it too many times from the broker side where a transportation provider will forget to do this one thing or that one thing, and they'll fake it. Understand that software technology and fraud, waste, and abuse are at an all-time high. So if an organization thinks that they can just squeeze one under and just hand jam it on their own, understand that they will get caught and they will be probably fined and removed as an eligible provider and placed on those OIG and SAM checks for exclusions. So just be transparent, talk with your broker, talk with your agency, understand what you can and can't do in certain situations when it comes to billing an invoice and making sure that you're staying on top of any and all changes that come through over the years.
Got it. Topic 15, state business authority requirements. So I guess businesses need to regularly check with their state's business authorities to make sure they're updated with the licensing, permits, and other mandates, right?
Yep, exactly. Making sure that you're staying on top of any required recertification documents, any of your attestations that your state or Medicaid office or broker may require. Understanding if there are certain time tables for those. In Indiana, a business has to recertify and affirm that they're still operating every 2 years. However, if you're a nonprofit organization, you have to do it every year. So understanding what those differences are and staying on top of them so that you can continue to be in compliance with your state and your broker and your Medicaid office.
Cool. Last and least, the final topic, which is certainly everyone's favorite, taxes. Businesses got to keep accurate financial records for tax purposes. They got to understand the local, state, and federal tax obligations. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is one of those topics where I always recommend that you have a second or even a third set of eyes. Tax laws are always changing at the local, state, and federal levels. So understanding what those are, having the right people in place, and making sure that you're double checking them. A lot of CPAs and tax professionals will also recommend that you have a second set of eyes look at your documents, because again, those laws are changing, exemptions change, but also understanding the business as a whole, and finding out what things are tax exclusions and where you may get additional breaks and credits for your organization based on the structure of the organization are key to help limit the amount of taxes that you have to pay on top of keeping your organization up, going, and compliant.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our 16 topics that are the main points that NEMT businesses need to think about when going from 0 to 1. Ray, thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions for Ray, just write to us at contact@bambi.health, and we will get all of your questions answered by email.
Run, Bambi, run.
Awesome. Thanks, Ray.